Alright. Welcome back to Nick Lenz Comic Corner, Classic Less Known Classics. This is episode number 3000 and 3079, Doubleshot number 2973. And first we're starting off with, I kid you not, the final trade to collect issues from Dan Slott's run from this title, that being She-Hulk. This is Volume 5 for the series. Yep, Volume 5. Planet Without She-Hulk, which contains issues 14 to 21 for the series. Of course, yes, written by Dan Slott with co-writing duties by Ty Templeton. The artwork in this book is done by Rich Burchett. And the let's see, don't credit. So, mostly put in the case of 14. Well, it is revealed that Star Fox was the one who kind of manipulated Jen Walters to marry John Jameson. And of course, suspecting he did the same with John. No. It was actually Mallory. And it is so that she can fall in love with Andy the Android. And the whole issue is focused on him and his various little adventures he had over the years. Really fun issue. And of course, he helped Mallory walk again, and then eventually after she started walking again, then she starts seeing Two Gun Kid, and then he quits, and then of course basically she gives up with the crutches, and then it's not the Matt Thing. Matt Thing is the one who made Andy the Android, and they have Jen go back to being she goes back to Jen, and then we have. I kid you not. Now we're on to the Planet Hulk tie-in. Or, excuse me, World War Hulk. And you're all thinking, really? Because very quickly, I believe this was the Planet Hulk tie-in. Yes. It's called Planet with the Hulk, but basically the cover of the first issue, which let's cover the trade here, this actually is a nod to a way. It's kind of a nod. It's basically She-Hulk, basically with S.H.I.E.L.D. And we had the first appearance of the Hulkbusters, the S.H.I.E.L.D. unit of them. They're not as well known as the other one. Yeah, they mostly play exist in She-Hulk and a couple issues of Iron Man. The last appearance they made was actually in Bendis' Iron Man. I think it was in a flashback? Oh, no, they actually did physically appear. Last time they appeared was basically about, oh my gosh, like 8 years ago. And just basically, two members were basically Agent Quartermain and Agent Cheesecake, who is a robot. A female robot, because of course they love LMDs. Yeah, and this guy called Beefcake. Agent Beefcake, who joins a little later on. And the whole thing with these issues it is She-Hulk being part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And also trying to capture people who are on the run from the law. She also runs the Talisman. There's also Wolverine basically here. Mr. Bobo, who is a chimpanzee. Yeah, he was a character who appeared very early on in She-Hulk. And then he just comes back here. He did in the previous volume, issue 5. He's back here, issue 16. And you see him throughout the remainder of Dan Slott's run. He appears a couple issues after that, when the replacement takes over. They see appearance here by the White Rabbit, who last appeared in the Claws miniseries. Yes. Well, chronologically anyways, but yeah. You can find out Wendigo in here, which is basically visiting stuff related to the original Hulk's debut. We also have the UFOs, Abomination, Batroc. A lot of really cool villains pop up with this thing. And by issue, I think it's like 18, I think it is, She-Hulk quits Shield. Yeah, she quits Shield. Yeah. And also we have to do a trial where the leader himself basically is brought there. Yeah, and he later here is like She-Hulk is actually tasked defending the leader of all people. Yes, the leader. By the way, he last appeared in this book back in issue 4. His previous appearance was actually in Fantastic Four 535 in a flashback. But yeah, last time was issue 4. Because reasons. Well, by issue 19, basically, by the end of this little run here, she quits S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, I love basically She-Hulk issue 20, which is a nod to a classic cover. Yeah, I think at this point, this is when she starts to file a divorce from John Jameson. Yes. And if you're really curious, how long did John stay in the title for She-Hulk? As a supporting character. Well, his last appearance was actually issue 14. After issue 20, he never appears in this book ever again. Nope. This issue here was kind of his last appearance. Because the appearance here by Howard the Duck, Stu the Human. Which, yeah, this is Dan Slott paying tribute to this, probably Steve Gerber. And then we had the final issue where Jen basically... There's at one point where Jen gets turned off being She-Hulk because of Iron Man having nanites, but nanites in her body. But thanks to the alternate universe She-Hulk, there's also a joke in these issues like, oh, you slept with the Juggernaut, and they pull a panel from the X-Men, I think it was like 435, and she's like, no, that was not me. And basically, this Jen Walters appears in this issue here. This actually is the one. This actually is a retcon. Yes. Basically, this is Slott retconning that Jen was telling the truth. That he probably was not a fan, which Chuck Austin did. So that's the reason why that basically that he decided to bring back this version of She-Hulk. And oh yeah, the one who appeared in those issues was in fact a alternate timeline version. And also Stu Calicro, who is a character that Dan Slott created for this book. Yeah, he leaves. Like, basically this will be his last appearance in the title. Yeah, he is a guy who loves comics and work at Marvel. Two Gun Kid himself, like, would he continue to appear in the title? Even after? Like, after Slott leaves? Like, does their place the writer himself? Now, he does come back a couple times in the book, but his last appearance actually was in Falcon. But he does return after this, issue 29. But this, in a way, is the end of Dan Slott's time on She-Hulk, which was a really good run. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Yeah, there's the appearance here by Dazzler, Beast, and we have basically people from 721. Where he does a tourist. Like I said, basically this whole last issue was Slott doing a retcon. Bless you. Yeah, that's simply the reason for it. It's like, yeah, even he realized, though, Chuck Austin did something stupid, so he decided to retcon it. So, But in the case of basically this whole run as a whole, what started with the previous volume for this series, yes, the very previous volume. And this book proved to be fantastic on the Slott. Sadly put, basically the book managed to last another 17 issues before getting canceled. And some of you might be curious, who replaced Dan Slott on this book? Peter David, which I have reviewed one of his issues he worked on, issue 31, because it was a crossover with X Factor. Yep, so I give She-Hulk, Planet Without She-Hulk, a 10 out of 10. Next up we have is, I can't think I reviewed this, but I looked up, nope, I didn't review this one. This is Giant Size X-Men by Johnathan Hickman. Those of you curious, why did I pick this one to review with She-Hulk? Because, like, She-Hulk just basically features some of the Marvel's most beautiful women. Basically, these Giant Size X-Men books are giant size for Jean Grey, Emma Frost, Phantom X, Magneto. Basically, at this point, all of these little giant size books were released alongside the X titles. As sort of like a side thing for Hickman to do. Hickman was basically doing X-Men. He was doing this book, these books, obviously. And he was also doing issues of New Mutants with Bronson swapping issues, which he had to leave the book after a year. But he still continued on with X-Men to issue 21, but then he did this and Inferno, and that was it. That's all he ever did for X-Men. So, yeah, it's like, okay, so I was right about, okay, the first one focused on Jean Grey and Emma Frost, the second focused on Magneto, the third is, second is Macro, third is Magneto, fourth is Phantom X, and fifth is Storm. All these Giant books here are written by Johnathan Hickman, but different co-artists this one. Jean Grey and Emma Frost, Russell Diamond, who was an artist on Thor. Nightcrawler is done by Alan Davis, which that makes total sense due to the fact Alan Davis has done some X books before. Magneto was done by Ramon K. Perez. There's also Phantom X. His whole thing is like, we have this other guy who appears in this book where he's like a follower of his from the world who knew about him. We have Rob Reese in New York here. We have Storm, also Russell Diamond, who's the only book he does here. The whole thing of this book is that she feels she's dying, and basically it's her trying to cure for what disease she has. It is interesting that we have Jean and Emma Frost working together in this one shot. By the way, they're the only things connected on these one shots. It's like a mini series, the Giant Size series, and this starts it off. And the artwork here is gorgeous, and the whole thing is basically trying to figure out what's going on with Storm, and that's kind of basically what the plot that we have here. Phantom X and Magneto to Storm just because, why not? Phantom X, this actually is the second solo thing he's ever had with his name on it. Aside from a Max series for Phantom X, he had a mini-series for Max, and then he had this, and that was it. For Jean Grey herself, for President Jean Grey, this was actually not the first time, basically, she had a solo story for herself, where she's like a focused character. She had to issue Bizarre Adventures. There was Phoenix Untold from the 80s. I think she had some spotlight stories in Classic X-Men, but that was it for her. Now currently she's got an ongoing series by Stephanie Phillips, who does a really good job with the book. But it's like Emma Frost and Grey working with Magneto, of course, who gets a lot of focus. It's all about him. Magneto, of course, not the first one shot for him. I think this was the second, third one he's ever had of his own. He's had a few mini-series over the years. He's even had a single ongoing, believe it or not. Yeah, it's done by the awesome Cullen Bunn. Well, this book was amazing, and it's a shame, basically, that no one talks about the book anymore. Nope. Has anybody, in fact, Magneto actually had an ongoing series? I mean, how before Jean Grey ever did? And if you're curious, out of all of the characters appearing in the opening issue of X-Men, released in 1963, guess how many characters in the book actually had ongoing titles? As of currently, there have only been 3. Really? Magneto, Jean Grey, who's had like 2. Well, actually, she's had like one of her posts right now. You're thinking, oh, well, what about the first volume of Jean Grey? That was past Jean Grey. This is basically like one basically was all by time travel. So you have Magneto, Jean Grey, and regrettably Iceman. Yep, they had him. Cyclops had a single miniseries for himself. They had one for Past Self. But you're thinking, what about Charles Xavier? Did he ever have a book of his own? Not really, no. I've never heard of him actually having one. Nope, he's never had a series on. Beast has had a few miniseries, never had the ongoing. Angel has had he has a solo feature from that started in back up at Kazar and Marvel Tales, which is a 3-part story involving him and his evil uncle, which they followed the story in the Hidden Years series. Yes. But series-wise, I think he had one mini-series, and that was team up with Psylocke. And that was it. It's like the only people get love from the original characters from issue 1, just Iceman, who had a pretty terrible book. I'll be reviewing that soon. Magneto, and now Jean Grey. Yeah. Really good one-shots. Loved every single one of these one-shots. Yep. And by the end, Storm is cured. And it feels like a side thing, per se. Now, of course, also, you're thinking, okay, is there anything besides miniseries, a few ongoings to review? Well, believe it or not, during the Kakor era, the X-Men had a digital first book published. One book was notoriously bad. I've never read it, but I've seen images of it. That being X-Men Green. I've heard this book is so terrible. Marvel Comics has never put this book in trade paperback. I've never seen any trade paperbacks this one. Not really. It's a book where basically Nature Girl becomes basically a environmental terrorist, an eye-boy basically who's massively in love with her, just following her around while she commits eco-terrorism. And the whole thing is started because of a plastic bag, ended up on a course shore. Yeah. But these books are awesome. Yeah, Hickman, whenever he wrote X books, I never thought any issue he wrote for the X-Men franchise was bad. No. Never did. He had consistent good books, per se, and this technically is the last thing to cover for him for X-Men. Because I've covered X-Men, his whole run. There's also Inferno, which I have covered, New Mutants, and now this. I'm going to give Giant Size X-Men a 9 out of 10. Fantastic books. And I think with that, basically, when it comes to Hickman's time with the X-Books, I think that's it. Well, there's also, of course, I have reviewed Powers of X and House of X, obviously, which was the thing that started off, basically, his time on the X-Books, per se. Yes. As of currently, he does Ultimate Universe, and he does a few books, per se, currently. I mean, I've reviewed a lot of books he's written. I do mean a lot of them. Has it been almost every single one? Well, I have not reviewed Ultimate Fallout. I've never reviewed Ultimate Fallout, Ultimate Thor. Yeah, these two, most importantly, I have not reviewed yet, but a lot of them I have reviewed. But in the case of X-Books, per se, well, you're probably thinking, is there any left to go? Well, Inferno was officially the last one he worked on. And the weird thing was, after Inferno basically ended, he did a few one-shots here and there, and then the Ultimate Invasion. Yeah. I heard because he actually left Marvel briefly, and then Marvel brought him back to do Ultimate Invasion, which came out just a couple years ago. And prior to doing that stuff, the last regular thing he worked on was Inferno. And he came back a year later. He's been back in Marvel since then, doing sporadic stuff, and of course also doing, he did his series Gods, Ultimate Spider-Man, which is really good. He did a series, Wolverine Revenge. Yes, he wrote this thing. He also currently writes Aliens vs. Avengers. But mostly put currently, he just does Alien vs. Avengers and all the Spider-Man. That's what he does nowadays. Which, of course, basically, like... So it's like just 2 miniseries and 2 ongoing. That's basically what you see for him nowadays. For more comics. Yep, so yeah, that's basically it took a view. Please be sure to like and subscribe to notifications and do its like button. Well, next up basically is head on to the road. Okay, next video. Bye.